Okay, so just come out of Jonas Eidevall's pre-West Ham press conference. First of all, apologies. I've absolutely massacred my face shaving. My only excuse is when you have a 2-year-old, sometimes you have a very small window to do things and you have to do them very quickly. So this was a bit of a rush job. But anyway, that's not the important part. The important part is Jonas Eidevall and what he was talking about in his press conference just now ahead of the final game of the WSL season. So obviously we had the news this morning that Jonas Eidevall has extended his Arsenal contract. He's been handed a new contract. That announcement was taken together with men's team manager Mikel Arteta, who has also extended his contract. And it has to be said, a really nice touch from the club, actually, to put those announcements side by side. All of the photos are of the two of them together. So all of the other outlets that are using the publicity shoots to announce Mikel Arteta's contract extension have Jonas's picture in them. Whether they reference Jonas or not, his picture is there. So I think that's a really nice touch from the club, just as a starting point. I had no inkling that was going to happen, actually. I'm purely speculating here. I don't know whether perhaps there was an automatic trigger extension because Arsenal confirmed their qualification for the Champions League next season last week. And in fact, now they can't finish any lower than second. So they go into at least into the final qualifying round. If they win the league, they go straight into the group stage. So I don't know whether perhaps that triggered an automatic extension. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But I think a sign, certainly a sign of faith from the club in what Jonas Eidevall's doing. And I have to say, I think the improvement has been there for all to see for Arsenal this season. I'm still curious about where it might go next season and beyond that. But I think Arsenal already 4 points better off than they were in the WSL last season and still with a game to play. So if they beat West Ham on Sunday, they will be 7 points better off compared to last season. And a lot of that has been because under Jonas, Arsenal have been, certainly in the WSL, more competitive in the big games, unbeaten against Manchester United, Manchester City and Chelsea, taking 4 points off of all four of those teams. And that really has catapulted them back into the title consideration, having finished third for the last couple of seasons. So some progress there. I think particularly you have to look at the backdrop of some of this as well. Arsenal brought in 9 new players across the last 2 transfer windows. They've got a new coach playing a very new style of football. They had absolutely no pre-season, not even a pre-season break, a lot of the players, because of the Olympics. There were 9 Arsenal players at the Olympics. So those players went straight from Japan, went to Russia and started playing Champions League qualifiers and haven't stopped since. And Jonas himself wasn't actually appointed until the middle of the summer. And due to, now it's a bit more complicated to move to UK from the EU now that the UK has departed from the EU. So, Jonas had to get a visa and visas for his family and everything like that. So he wasn't really... even the last Champions League qualifier at home to Sparta Prague, which I believe was August the 30th or August the 31st, he wasn't on the bench because he had to go back to Sweden to sort out his visa. So there was no preparation time, really, albeit I think those Champions League qualifiers did tee Arsenal up for the season nicely, and they played Chelsea and Manchester City at home in their first 3 games. And I do think having those qualifiers behind them helped them in those games play Chelsea and Man City teams that were slightly rustier, I think, than Arsenal were at the time. But nevertheless, I think there's definitely been progress this season, and Jonas's contract now runs until the end of the 23-24 season. So I don't know how significant that is in terms of getting some key players to commit to contracts as well. Obviously, there's Vivian Miedema. We don't know yet whether she's going to renew her contract or not, which expires this summer. I don't have any privileged info on that. I'd say that my kind of conclusion at this point would be, sadly, if it was going to get done, I think it would have been done by now, to be honest. But that's just speculation on my part. And obviously there's Caitlin Ford as well, who's been, one of Arsenal's most important players in the second half of the season. 2 goals against Tottenham on Wednesday night, and Arsenal really, really want her to stay. I think a lot of Arsenal fans really, really want her to stay, particularly if Viv is indeed going, replacing 2 of Arsenal's kind of first choice attackers Bearing in mind Tobin Heath has also left, I think that would leave a fair bit of work to do in the forward positions over the summer. But I did ask Jonas Eidevall whether he anticipated this summer being busy in terms of ins and outs. He said not really. He said he felt he had a very good core.
It's about finding diamonds that can improve us further.
To push the level of the squad. And I do think he is keen on a level of stability, but obviously you need to build your squad to an acceptable level before you get stability. Stability for me, for Chelsea, has been their biggest strength over the last 2 seasons. They've just got a squad that's been together for ages, and they've only had to add 1 or 2 players per window. So I think Arsenal aspire to be at that level of squad building. I don't think they're there yet. I think there will be quite a bit of activity this summer. There's also a few squad players, I think, who've got contracts coming up, like Jem Beattie, like Simone Boy. I don't think we'll see them at Arsenal next season. Lisa Evans is out on loan. Her contract expires. Pretty sure we won't see her at Arsenal next season. Ditto Lydia Williams, the reserve goalkeeper. Her contract is up. I think she'll probably go. So some churn, I think, certainly in the squad. And then I think it just comes down to getting a couple of those players to commit vis-a-vis Viv and Caitlin in particular. One player who did extend their contract this week was left back Steph Catley. And again, I think that's great news because she's 28 years old now. She's coming into her prime years. And I think she's one of the best left backs around. And we really didn't see Steph last season due to hamstring surgery where she played so little. But this year, she's really, really come into the fold. And I think she started 12 of the last 14 games for Arsenal. And I think that tells you that Jonas really sees her as part of his core starting 11. And actually now it's Katie McCabe, who obviously often plays higher up now, who's kind of coming in and out of the team, but Steph is the one that's staying on current form. So I think you can see how important she is, and really, really important, I think, to get that signature. And to have 2 left backs of the calibre of Catley and McCabe available, I think is just so strong. It's difficult for me to think of another WSL club who is that strong in that position. So that's really, really good news. I also asked him about staff as well, because when Jonas came last summer, he didn't bring any staff with him. So he kept Joe's backroom staff. So Aaron Dantino, who'd come over from Australia with Joe, and Leanne Hall, who's been around for many years around the Arsenal setup. And he said he's not looking to replace either of those coaches, that he's really happy working with them, and that formed part of his decision to extend his contract. But, he's talking about adding a bit more behind the scenes staff, I think, in some other functions. So probably some things to look out for there. I think there'll be fairly low-key announcements. But certainly a little bit of a kind of a buffering of the backroom staff. And of course, there's a new facility being built, purpose-built facility for the women's team at London Colney, which should be completed, I believe, by just after the beginning of next season. So some really positive stuff behind the scenes there as well. Just some other stuff, I think, to check in on. First of all, I asked if there was any update on the situation with Jordan Nobbs, who is obviously missing, well, there's only 1 game left this season, but is missing the West Ham game, and whether her participation in the Euros is under threat. Jonas not being drawn on that at the moment. He said it's still under assessment, and there's nothing further to add on the question that I asked earlier this week. So I think I speak for all Arsenal fans when we say fingers crossed for Jordan, because she's had such rotten luck with international tournaments that she really doesn't deserve. So really, really hopeful that she can be fit for the Euros this summer. Another question he was asked was about the tackle on Lia Wälti by Josie Green in the North London derby on Wednesday night. Really poor knee-high tackle when the ball was on the ground. Absolutely unbelievable that the referee did not think that was a red card. I'd like to think that the referee would be spoken to about that. 1 second, that's my door. Sorry about that. Really, really inopportune time for my doorbell to go. But yeah, just the last thing that Jonas was asked about was about the tackle on Lia Wälti by Josie Green of Spurs on Wednesday night. Knee-high tackle when the ball was on the ground, designed to hurt the player. I have no compunction about saying that. If it wasn't, then she shouldn't be on a football pitch anyway, because she doesn't know how to tackle. and really, really fortunate that no injury at all was caused to Lia by that challenge. It really, really could have been serious. It was a proper leg breaker, and Jonas was unrepentant about that and said it absolutely should have been a red card. And that nobody wants to see tackles like that in football, even in a derby game. But fortunately, Lia got up, was fine, is fine for Sunday. So I think in terms of team news for Sunday, it's really only Raffaele that will be missing, and obviously she's been missing for the last 6 to 7 games with a muscle injury. So I think we'll see pretty much the same team that we've been seeing in recent weeks for the West Ham game. I think the only question mark is who plays on the left wing between Katie McCabe and Caitlin Ford, and you have to say Caitlin Ford scored 2 goals on Wednesday, so she'll probably keep the shirt, and particularly if Arsenal are still trying to convince her to sign a new contract. So again, fingers crossed over that situation, but obviously we'll have all the usual coverage of the West Ham game. Obviously I will be there, and speak to Jonas after, and hopefully have something else for you next week exclusively on Arseblog News.